The X-Men franchise can only work as a TV show. This is kind of something I've observed over the past couple years, just remembering everything that I've consumed that's X-Men related. Now, mind you, X-Men is easily like one of my favorite franchises and my favorite Marvel comic book series out of all of the other ones. It's infinitely relatable. It has so many memorable characters. The dynamic between the characters is very interesting and likable. Sure, there's the contradictory aspect of the fact that it's taking place in the same world as, the Marvel Avengers, but it still lends itself as being easily one of the most iconic, memorable series running in Marvel Comics to this day. But it's not really good at adapting into film. Like a majority of the X-Men films are not really that good outside of ones that are focused squarely on Wolverine or the first X-Men movie. All of the other ones suck for the most part, at least in my opinion. I did not like First Class. I did not like Days of Future Past. I did not like Apocalypse. I didn't like freaking, The Last Stand or X2. Or X2 was okay, but it still was not that good. I did not really like it as much as the first one or anything else belonging to the franchise because of the fact that I think it just might be because there's just too many characters to focus on. I mean, it would have to get the Marvel treatment. It would have to have, an attachment to this greater, wider universe and having all these different characters have their own individual films. Easily the best X-Men film is Logan. Besides that, all the rest of them are either mediocre or bad. But if you compare this to the TV show versions of these, it's like night and day. Like I love the original 1980s X-Men, with the opening like dun 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 dun, it's very iconic. All the character dynamics is really cool. The romance that's handled in the series is really awesome, and that's mostly because of the people who were running and making the show were married and they had a relationship and they infused a lot of their personal feelings about the characters into the show. There was a lot of creativity that went into the original 1980s version that I really can't go into in this video. I really want to talk about those more extensively. X-Men Evolution definitely was like my favorite cartoon growing up outside of like The Last Airbender. It's so cool seeing all the character dynamics. Everything feels very relatable and believable. Like in the first episode, you have this dynamic and this comparison between characters like Scott Summers and Jean Grey and characters like Toad and Nightcrawler, whose mutations make them more far gone from normality compared to like, you know, freaking Jean Grey and Scott Summers and Kitty Pryde and people like that, and it has them have a very unique and different conflict compared to everybody else. They can't just walk around in broad daylight in their normal form and expect to be accepted by everybody. And this was something that I really appreciated about the original X-Men Evolution. Now, there were a lot of other elements to the series that really brought it to life, but I feel like it was only possible with the episodic format in the very first half of the series, really like drawing you in to the story before we even get a touch of the actual plot that goes on in the background. And I feel like the Apocalypse plot line in Evolution is the definitive plot line in any sort of cinematic understanding of the story. You know, it's just so good. I love the dynamic between the characters in that sort of situation. And Apocalypse's character had more time to be fleshed out. If you compare that to the films, which in the films, especially in the new batch of films with Days of Future Past, the best elements to those films were Magneto and Professor X and Quicksilver. And besides those things, not really. I mean, there's Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, but I kind of see Hugh Jackman's Wolverine as a separate entity entirely to the X-Men franchise at that point because he was already making his own films, completely divorced from, the X-Men films. Which at this point I feel is going to be very hard for them to redeem themselves because the last good X-Men movie was Logan, and I could speak all day about how incredible Logan is, how amazing Hugh Jackman did in that movie, how amazing the young girl actress did in that movie, and just the level of realism that I felt throughout the